One last time, digital network advertising, 909-222-9293.
Hey Ryan, do we have any beer in the fridge?
Nah, I thought you got some.
The game starts in 5 minutes.
And you drank the last beer at midnight on Friday.
I wish there was a place that delivered beer.
Yes, I'm Captain Crafted. I'm here to bring you beer. That's Captain, C-R-A-F-T''D. Why? Because there's no E, just a D, as in deliver, because Captain Crafted delivers.
That's right, the Crafted Beer Store in Redlands is now open for business with great prices and deliveries of your favorite beer, wine, spirits, water, ice, and mixers. Did I mention their great prices? That's CRAFTDBEER store.com or Fred Crafted Beer Store on Facebook.com. Make it easy. Google Redlands Beer Delivery. Look for Crafted Beer.
Crafted Beer Store in Redlands is now open for business, and I'm here to deliver.
This is Dick from Carpet Masters. Carpet Masters has been serving the Inland Empire for over 60 years. We are locally owned and operated by the Stevens family. We not only clean carpet and furniture, we clean many loose rugs, including Oriental rugs. Oriental rugs are cleaned in our modern facility where the fringes are cleaned by hand, then hung in our modern facility to dry. We do not use steam cleaning to clean your fine furniture. Furniture is cleaned by hand using the same absorption cleaning used in the White House. Some furniture we bring into our plant to clean properly. We normally use 2 men on each cleaning job using the extraction method. There is nothing that will clean carpet better for our customers. Our job is to clean properly with quality first. Google Carpet Masters San Bernardino and give us a call, or go to carpetmasterssocal.com.
Do you owe more than $10,000 in back taxes to the IRS? Can't afford to pay? You're not alone. The slow economy has backed many Americans into a financial corner. Here's fantastic news. The Internal Revenue Service is now accepting reduced settlements from taxpayers in trouble. A government program is in place to relieve overburdened taxpayers. It's called the Fresh Start Initiative, and if you qualify, you can end all collections, settle your tax issue, and possibly reduce the amount you owe by thousands of dollars. A new taxpayer emergency helpline has been set up by Tax Mediation Services. Call the helpline now at 877-207-2077. See if you qualify to have all collections ended and to have your tax problems resolved for thousands less. If you owe more than $10,000 in back taxes to the IRS that you cannot afford to pay, call now to see if you qualify for the Fresh Start Initiative. 877-207-2077. 877-207-2077. 877-207-2077.
It's time to make the Tri-City Center in Redlands a regular part of your weekly shopping experience. Tri-City is home to a wide assortment of quality businesses, including the all-new Ocean Aquatics. Check out their variety of exotic tropical fish, along with fish food, accessories, and tanks of all shapes and sizes. The Tri-City Center is located just off of Alabama and the Tennessee exits in Redlands. Visit the Tri-City Center today and find out why it's called the Mall with a Heart.
You're listening to KCAA, your good neighbor along the way.
Father John Reed.
I'll have you know I have the reflexes of a cat and the speed of a mongoose.
Atheist Pastor Luke King.
Yes, Satan? Oh, I'm sorry, sir. You sounded like someone else.
The Gospel of Luke and John.
I have exorcised the demons. This house is clear.
Are you ready for a miracle? Ready as I can be. Are you ready for a miracle? Ready, set you free. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? I'm ready for a miracle.
KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, and online at kcaaradio.com. This is the Gospel of Luke and John. My name is Luke King, your atheist pastor, alongside everyone's favorite Orthodox priest, Father John Reed.
Hey, welcome to a new show with us this week, and you can follow us on Facebook at the Gospel of Luke and John, or Instagram at Luke John Gospel, that's Luke John Gospel, or go to our website, which is gospeloflukeandjohn.com. If you have questions during the show, you can send them over to our wonderful producer, Tammy, and she will shoot them over to us.
Or you can also call us at 909-792-KCAA, 909-792-5222. Great show tonight. A little bit later, we are going to get into a little bit talking about the Me Too campaign and sexual assault and sexual harassment as it relates to the church. So there's another hashtag out there called Church Too, and there's been a lot of things going on and a lot of discussion, especially even more so this weekend, with a pastor in Memphis, Tennessee, who basically, when he was a youth pastor, engaged in some questionable activity, allegedly with a 17-year-old member of his youth group.
Mercy.
But before we get into that, we have a special guest on the line with us tonight. His name is Mr. Bruce Gleason, and he is the founder of Logical LA. See, I just had everything pulled up, and it was going to be this amazing transition, and it was going to be so good, and I lost the page I was on because I started talking about something else. Here we go. So Bruce is he's the Logical LA conference director. He has produced the Free Thought Alliance conference in Orange County for 6 years. He's been inquisitive from a young age. He questioned everything. A natural skeptic, educated in electrical engineering with a minor in psychology. He is a voracious reader of scientific literature and is the founder of Backyard Skeptics, the largest skeptics organization in Orange County, California. In 2017, Bruce set out to bring a new conference promoting science and critical thinking to the Los Angeles area. Bruce, thanks for joining us tonight.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about what this, tell us a little bit about the conference. What's the goal? What do you guys, what do you do? What do you want to achieve by having this conference in LA?
Well, I think it's first important to distinguish between scientific skeptics and conspiracy skeptics. I take it you know the difference between the two?
Why don't, even if I did know the difference, why don't you tell us what it is anyway?
Well, the conspiracy skeptics are basically hearsay of myths and rumors. 9/11 conspiracists or aliens are here among us, or Bigfoot exists, or a lot of different wacky, pretty much conspiracy skeptics out there. But the scientific skeptics is almost the opposite. We need scientific evidence or a consensus of leaders in one particular scientific field to say that something is true. And to be very clear, we very rarely say that something is true. We say something is most probably true. And of those things like climate change or other things that have lots of, like medical experiments or medical knowledge that has been built upon since the 1880s, we say that we have a very high confidence that it is true. But it's only until another piece of evidence comes along that completely wipes out something that we've already thought is true. And in today's age, that doesn't happen very often. What does happen is that there is an amendment or additional evidence that might change the original trueness, I guess you should say, of a particular event or a particular idea. So basically, we're truth seekers. And I know that sounds almost religious, but we most scientific skeptics also inquire about religion a bit. So we don't say that God doesn't exist. We say that we don't believe God exists. And I would say about 90 to 95% of scientific skeptics have reasoned through the religious arguments and consider themselves atheists.
Well, I want to go back to something you mentioned. You mentioned climate change. Where do you folks fall on the idea of climate change with all the scientific data that is there?
Well, since there are 1,758 official climatologists, these are people that work with climate full-time, not an associate with climate change, such as if you're into gases or if you're into geology or into the plant life on Earth. These are actual scientists that get together every couple of years in Paris and decide what's going on within their field. And if 99% of them agree that there is climate change due to man's activity, we as skeptics don't have the time to become a climatologist. So we say there is a very high likelihood that 1,758 people together are in a major consensus of one particular issue, that issue is probably true. That's
Okay,
why
good.
we come to it. Pretty much like anything, if you have a kidney problem and you go to a kidney specialist, I'm sure that they have kidney specialist meetings every year around the world, and they talk about exactly what is improving the health of people concerning their kidneys. And we have to agree that they know what they're talking about.
Absolutely. Bruce, what inspired this? What inspired you to start this and to move in this direction? What are you hoping to achieve with this?
Public education of science, pretty much. There's somewhat of a movement going around in the U.S. that is anti-science, and it kind of follows with anti-big government as well. But specifically, there's a lot of woo out there, and woo is defined as things like acupuncture, homeopathy, vaccines cause autism, all of these things that people are influenced of popular figures like movie stars and ex-playmates. And this can have a large amount of harmful effects, because when you go to something that isn't scientifically proven, like let's take as an example homeopathy. The harm is that you might go to homeopathy, which we believe as skeptics is a placebo effect, and feel very good once you take the first course. But if you have stage 1 cancer and you still feel good because of the placebo, and then it turns into stage 2 cancer and so forth, you might be in very, very big risk of harming yourself by taking something that isn't scientifically proven.
Well, I agree with you on that topic, but you mentioned acupuncture, and that's really an old science. In fact, I personally have benefit from it. I had a chiropractor break my neck a few years back, and nothing can give me relief from pain, but acupuncture actually did. It's the first time in over a year I went pain-free. But you don't have any faith in acupuncture?
No, I don't. The reason for it, because the studies that they've done that are double-blind or repeated. And if you take anecdotal evidence, by the way, is not a good way to decide if something is true. The old saying, if you believe it, that is true, doesn't mean that it's true. What you have to do is take a look at thousands of other people that have gone through studies. And there was a study about 6 years ago with 3,000 people in Europe. And it turns out that the doctor that was actually a fake doctor compared to a real doctor gave better medical treatment poking somebody anywhere they wanted to, simply because of their attitude in the experiment of being more personable than a clinical doctor, acupuncture. And you mentioned something that is a fallacy. That is, it's been around for a long time. Well, that's the antiquity fallacy. There's a lot of things that have been around a long time that we have completely wiped out of our medical field, and even in the pseudoscience, the woo that I'm talking about, that they've completely cut that out because it's actually been harmful. But acupuncture seems to be hanging around for quite a while, and I simply don't go to it, because if 3,000 people were fooled, who am I? If I wasn't a scientific skeptic and I realized that 3,000 people could be fooled to make it feel like the treatment was actually doing something to them, then I know that I could be fooled. This is something that you can discover through religion or any type of medical procedure that is not supported by scientific evidence.
So, Bruce, you've got quite a list here of people who are going to be speaking and who are going to be part of the panels. I see Lawrence Krauss, Yvette d'Entremont, I think is how you pronounce her last name. Her name is Cybabe. I heard her on Seth Andrews a while back. Absolutely love what she has to say. I think she started her whole thing as a counter to was it the Food Babe?
It was the Food Babe.
Yeah, and so she was inspired she was inspired basically with what you mentioned. There was a bunch of this woo, and she was inspired to kind of go out there and essentially re-educate people.
Exactly.
So who are on all these people who are going to be speaking? Who are you most excited about?
Well, Lawrence Krauss is just an absolutely wonderful speaker, and the reason I started Logicala LA is because you might already know there's a lot of scientific skeptics all over the United States in almost every major city, except for Los Angeles, which is kind of amazing. So 2 years ago, I started it. We had Sean Carroll, happens to be another theoretical physicist like Lawrence Krauss is, and his speech was just absolutely amazing. So we need more public education, and for those people who are wanting the equivalent of one entire semester of college in a 2-day weekend, this is it, because
no, that is
get a lot of information.
That is quite a promise.
Yeah,
that is quite a promise. A semester of scientific education in a weekend. Now I can get behind. I can get behind that for sure.
Well,
so
that's where I'm a skeptic.
So Bruce, when is it? Where is it? And how can we go? What do we need to know?
It's pretty simple. The website's logicalla.com. All the descriptions are there for the speakers. It's a little bit pricey because we break even. We didn't make any money last year, and we're giving it another go this year, where all of the money that is charged to the attendees goes directly to support the conference. There's no administration fees. It's an almost entirely volunteer team that puts on Logical LA. And there is one thing that I'd like to mention before I go. We just added a payment option, so you can get half price admission and then pay a monthly subscription for a few months afterwards. So it really eases the wallet, the pain on the wallet, so to speak.
Oh, it does. So you don't have to pay for it all at once, which is really nice. So it's February 9th through 11th. So it's coming up. It's not too far away.
It is. That's right.
And it is at the Renaissance Los Angeles Airport Hotel. So if you want to go, if you want to check it out, logicalla.com, the Renaissance Los Angeles Airport Hotel, February 9th through 11th. So many great speakers. And what you just heard, the discussion you heard tonight, is just a brief glimpse of what the entire weekend is going to be.
Of course, yes. And we do also have nightly entertainment, which is very entertaining, of course, and it's actually Monday on Darwin Day. We're having a tour down to the La Brea La Brea Tar Pits, which it's a VIP tour. They unlock the gates, so you can go all the way down to the tar without falling in, hopefully.
Well, that would really give you an education.
Yes.
So again, that's logicalla.com, February 9th through the 11th. So many great speakers. So much. It's going to be fantastic. I'm hoping to at least get down there for a day and check it out because I really want to see the Side Babe. I'm excited about her.
I hope you can make it.
All right, Bruce Gleason, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right. My name is Luke King. When I left the church, I had no idea where to turn. I had lost my entire worldview. I knew deep down that it was possible to be a secular person and still add value to the lives of others. I just had no idea how to live that way. I read books, I searched for tips and ideas. I wanted to ask for advice, but I didn't even know who to ask. I became frustrated because it seemed like all the resources available were out to prove religion wrong, and that just wasn't my concern. My concern was, how do I live my best life today? Since I couldn't find the guidance I was searching for, I started the Your Atheist Pastor Show to document my journey. I love people. I still want to do good in this world. The only difference is that now I do it without God. I'd love for you to come on this journey with me. Just hop on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, anywhere podcasts can be found, and type in Your Atheist Pastor. That's Your Atheist Pastor. Welcome to church. The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp, as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
Hello there! Are you tired of handcrafted, award-winning beer in a cozy, family-friendly atmosphere? Of course you're not! You're not a dummy! Sanctum Brewing Company is all these things at once. Nestled in beautiful Pomona, California, Sanctum is independently owned and operated, making delectable poetry by the pint for your enjoyment, bringing you a family-friendly, dog-friendly atmosphere. Enjoy the wonderful views at Sanctum Brewing Company, including warehouses, mountains, and train tracks. Also, we have a pallet wood wall. Yes, we were doing it before it was cool. We're not that hard to find on Google Maps, or Apple Maps, or MapQuest. Yes, it's still a thing. Sanctum Brewing Company, home to the world's largest selection of 2x4 furniture.
Something about you makes me feel like a dangerous woman. Something about you makes me wanna do things that I shouldn't.
KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, and online at kcaaradio.com. This is the Gospel of Luke and John. My name is Luke King, alongside Father John Reed.
Hey.
So that was a great chat with Bruce Gleason. Check out logicalLA.com if you're interested in going down there and getting a lot of great information. I'm really excited about some of the speakers that you're going to have down there. Also, what was I going to talk about? Your book. That's what I was going to talk about. That's what was written down here on my piece of paper.
You know, I wish I put pictures in it now.
It's less distraction. No, so you know what? Here's the thing about John's book. I grew up and was part of a very fundamentalist, very narrow-minded religious tradition for a while.
Right.
And I eventually ended up kind of where I am as an atheist. There are a lot of people, though, who want to look at their faith differently, but have really never been given permission to think of their faith from a different perspective.
Right.
And you try to do that in what you write in your book, Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me.
Yes, in fact, I think it's important to first start off with the idea that God doesn't have stepchildren. We're all his kids. And that it's okay to change your mind based on new information. And it's okay to have different thoughts than other people and to find your own experience with God.
So we wanted to talk tonight about, this really came from a question from Tammy, where she was very curious about kind of the Orthodox view of women because of she grew up Catholic, so women can't be priests; they can only be nuns,
Sure.
and how a lot of different Protestant traditions have women can be clergy, some women can't be clergy, and then it takes it to this broader discussion of if women can't be clergy, then how does that religious tradition view women in general? And, the Me Too campaign has been going on. Now, if you get on Twitter and hashtag #ChurchToo, there's this new movement to kind of bring to light a lot of what has been happening behind the scenes in church as well.
Yes.
And there was something that happened this weekend recently. This guy named Andy Savage from High Point Church in Memphis, Tennessee, and you can look him up if you want to. Basically, he's accused of sexually assaulting a girl named Jules Woodson when she was 17, and he was a 20-year-old youth pastor. And allegedly, he was driving her home, and according to Woodson, rather than driving her home, he drove her to a darker part of town and allegedly kind of forced her to engage in some sex acts. And this is an issue because so many religions tend to be very sexually repressive and sexually abusive, specifically to women.
Yeah, the current teaching is that's true. That's not how it started out in Christianity. And let me start by something some of my instructors in seminary said to me. The collar doesn't make the priest. And you can use that for whatever denomination you are. There are many people who go into the role of clergy with the wrong idea. Some people see it as a role of power to have over people, and that's not what we're told. We're told that you should be the servant of the people that you serve. That those who want to be great have to be the greatest servant. Now, you talked a little bit about the role of women in church, and the way it is today is not how Jesus gave it to us. First of all, Mary Magdalene was the first woman disciple who was the apostle to the apostles. Now you may say, well, what does that mean, apostle to the apostles? After the crucifixion and with the resurrection, who was the first person that Jesus appeared to? Mary Magdalene. And so what did Mary do? Mary went and told the other disciples, now apostles, that Jesus is risen. The message there is that she was number one. And there was a whole gospel that's been cut out called the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. And I have a copy of it, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yes. And it's not a Gnostic gospel. So for some of you who are going to say, oh, that's part of the Gnostic teaching, it wasn't. It was cut out later because of the fact that it shows that Mary was the favorite.
Well, and this is such a multifaceted discussion, because if you look at right now, and just taking, taking Andy Savage's this what happened here as an example, just shaming these people, just shaming pastors, and I'm not at all making excuses for the guy or whatever. So just don't even think that I'm doing that, because that's ridiculous. I'm not going to make excuses for this guy. But this is such a multifaceted discussion, because people think like, oh, how could this happen at a church? And the part of it is because the church is an intimate place.
Yes.
When you're a church isn't like a business. It's not like a conference.
Okay.
You're connecting with people on a different level. And pastors, and you can probably speak to this more than anybody can, pastors aren't typically trained the same way that mental health and helping professionals are.
That's correct.
They're not trained in. I remember when I was in seminary, we had a guy come in and it told us about something called erotic transference.
Right.
Which I had never heard of before. And I wonder how many pastors have heard of it. And basically the concept behind erotic transference is when you are, as a man, if I were counseling a woman and she were telling me her problems and the things that she was doing, because I'm listening and engaging, I am it could be in the client's mind building a romantic connection with her.
Well, let me explain why that works.
Yeah.
First of all, sex is not just a desire. It's not just a drive. It's an emotion, and it's the strongest of all emotions. And so when someone expresses to us unconditional love, we reach out with our strongest emotion, which is our sexual desire. And this is a natural occurrence, and that's why it's really important that whoever is doing the counseling, where you're clergy, where you're a licensed therapist, that you're aware of what's going on and you can explain. I've had many people I have counseled with that I've explained to them, what you're experiencing is unconditional love. And because of the nature of our relationship, it can never be anything beyond what our professional relationship is. I can never meet with you in private outside the office, have any type of social relationship. It's called a dual relationship. But there are people who, they get that power and they use it for the wrong purposes. I worked with a psychiatrist for a while who was doing that, and thank goodness he finally lost his license, because he was going to the different psychiatric hospitals, gaining the trust of some of the female patients, taking them out into the parking lot into his van, and having intercourse with them right there. And thank goodness they caught him finally, and they caught him in the act.
And that's good, and that they caught him. And that's an extreme, is a perfect example of how bad it can get. But I think on some level, when this happens, it's because these guys, this is a 22, okay, this guy's what, 20 years old?
Right.
With a 17-year-old, so there's not much of an age gap. And again, not making excuses for him. This is the fact. This is the fact of the matter. He's 20, she's 17. That's 3 years. Not a huge gap. And if this man has never been told, this is what erotic transference is, this can happen. Because if you read her thing, if you read the the
bio,
her bio and what she says happened. It's that she was expressing to him her parents just went through a divorce. So that's exactly what was happening. And he wasn't prepared for this. He probably thought they were building. And again, not explaining it, just not explaining it away. I'm just saying this happened, and it's putting a 20-year-old in a youth pastor position with a 17-year-old might not be a good idea.
Well, this is one of the reasons why in the Orthodox, you cannot be ordained a priest until you're at least 30 years of age.
So you have to start to head downhill first before you...
Well, you need to get life experience. Look, I'm not putting down my Roman brothers, but one of the problems and one of the reasons there's so much sexual issues in the Roman Church is these are kids who are going into professional priesthood. We call it vocation, not professional, who have not found out who they are yet. And now suddenly they have this huge responsibility. They're ordained between 22 and 23 years old. You're still a kid at that point. I'm sorry, you are.
I got married when I was a kid. I got married at 22.
Right.
Bad move.
And this is when all the chemicals are really flowing, and what we call severe case of the hornitis. And you have all this power that you don't know how to deal with yet because the ego has not been trained yet. And so now someone reaches out to you with love and you already feel inadequate. If you are doing the job of clergy and you've never felt inadequate, you don't get the idea of the job. People are coming to you with real trust. And so someone shows them a little affection, and that is called countertransference. And they misunderstand that, and a lot of mistakes happen and real people get hurt. You know, I talked about that psychiatrist. They finally got caught, but you know, for everyone gets caught, there's probably 100 that don't. And so, yeah, it's a real problem. I shared with you a little bit about what happened to me when I was young and in school. It goes over all different, what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
You're the young one here. Oh, demographics. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay,
demographics.
There we go.
Oh, my goodness. Look,
age groups.
Yes. Well, and sexual orientation. I was a young man just starting my college career, and I had a member of the clergy who said that they had a lot of money, and they did. This guy was a multimillionaire. And he offered to put me through school because I was going to go into the Navy to pay for my school. And he says, rather than do that, in our system, we believe in paying it forward. And so I'll put you through school. When you graduate, you could do this for somebody else. He had a house down in Brea. Says, you know, I'll take care of the room and board and everything. Well, I moved in, and within a couple weeks, it became real clear what he wanted. And it came to either I put out or get out, and I got out. And I was scandalized. I almost left ministry completely because I had such trust in the system. And you're supposed to be able to trust your clergy. That's one reason I left that denomination and wound up going into the Orthodox, is because I couldn't feel safe there. What made it worse, and this is important in the churches, because this guy had so much money. When I wrote a letter to the head of the organization, his money took precedence. And so I was silenced, as a lot of these women are silenced, and also other young men who are silenced, because he had so much money. That's what mattered.
I think another issue that comes up with this is the American church is terrified of sex. Mm-hmm. Like in general,
sure,
it's so repressed. Sexuality is so oppressed, and if you think about how averse most churches are to sex, especially the evangelicals, it seems like purity pledges, no sex before marriage, don't look at porn, just all kinds of rules and restrictions. And I think that these churches, they put they're doing a huge disservice when it comes to sex and sexuality. And part of this Church 2 campaign, a lot of these women aren't necessarily talking about being sexually assaulted. They're saying things like, I had a youth minister who during a breakout session with all the boys at my church camp called my name because of the size of my chest during their discussion on controlling lust, as if their proximity to her was to blame.
Wow.
Another woman says, when I kissed a boy at my youth pastor, when I kissed a boy and my youth pastor met alone with me and said, go wash your hands because you should feel dirty about what you did, he sympathized with the boy and told him to avoid a temptress like her. She was 16.
Well, that's not just only in the Christian faith. In the Muslim faith, the reason that the women have to cover themselves up is because the men blame the women for their lust, because if they didn't entice them, they wouldn't have the problem. When do we take responsibility for our own actions? You know,
and that's huge. That is a huge thing. Is that there is, in my experience when I was in the church, and I think it's not just the church. It's anywhere. There's a huge lack of personal responsibility in what anybody does. It's always somebody else's fault. Another tweet: 7 years ago during a church service, I was on the receiving end of a public confession from a close male friend who admitted to having fantasies about molesting and raping me. He was immediately praised for his bravery and holiness, presumably in making the public confession.
Right.
And she says, I was still in the room.
Yes. Well, and you have these, look, the old expression, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Look at Jimmy Swaggart. Here he goes and where he's telling people lust is bad, he's hooking up with prostitutes. Usually that which we protest most, as William Shakespeare said, methinks the girl protests too much. Usually it's because we have a fear of our own weaknesses. So instead of owning it and saying, look, I have a problem, we project it out on others. Look at our president right now. You know, one person calls you a horse, you can shrug it off.
I try not to look at our president right now.
Well, as the saying goes, one person calls you a horse, you can shrug it off. 6 people call you a horse, you better start shopping for a saddle. And we have 19 women who seem very credible saying he did this. What message?
But he said Jesus during the presidential campaign. So.
And what message does that give to people? You wonder why people take so long to come out when we damned a person for coming out when they're the victim.
And I think when we come back from break, we're going to get into a little bit more. We're going to get a little theologically nerdy when we come back and talk a little bit about Jesus and how he interacted with women. I think it's really important to understand that a lot of the verses we're going to be talking about have a direct relationship to the way sex, sexuality, male-female relationships, all those things are played out based on how you interpret those things. So it's really important when we look at these verses and these verses that talk about women participating in ministry and women not participating in ministry, the way you interpret those verses have everything to do with the way churches and church leaders interact with women.
Are you a business owner or entrepreneur? Maybe you manage a nonprofit. What are your dreams? What are your goals? Are you searching for that business breakthrough? Well, we have the answer. Radio. That's right, radio. 93% of Americans listen to radio each week, and Forbes magazine calls radio the captive audience that most businesses overlook. The second most popular radio platform is talk radio, which is what you're listening to right now. So what are you waiting for? Let's develop a plan to take your business to the next level and beyond. Go to lucascking.com and fill out the form. It's really simple. It'll pop right up when you get there. And I'll get back to you within 24 hours to set up a time for us to talk. That's lucascking.com. Lucas C, as in Carl, King.com.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org, www.4pfp, as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
Hello there! Are you tired of handcrafted, award-winning beer in a cozy, family-friendly atmosphere? Of course you're not. You're not a dummy. Sanctum Brewing Company is all these things at once. Nestled in beautiful Pomona, California, Sanctum is independently owned and operated, making delectable poetry by the pint for your enjoyment, bringing you a family-friendly, dog-friendly atmosphere. Enjoy the wonderful views at Sanctum Brewing Company, including warehouses, mountains, and train tracks. Also, we have a pallet wood wall. Yes, we were doing it before it was cool. We're not that hard to find on Google Maps, or Apple Maps, or MapQuest. Yes, it's still a thing. Sanctum Brewing Company. There will be snacks.
You don't own me. You don't own me.
Well, let's go. But I'm Gerald. And I can always have
KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, and online at kcaaradio.com. This is the Gospel of Luke and John. My name is Luke King, alongside Father John Reed. Talking about women tonight.
Yes.
Women in ministry, women in the church, sexual assault, all those things in the next, we're going to cover it all in the next 15 minutes. So we'll wrap it, we'll solve everything. We'll solve everything in 15 minutes.
Good heavens. Sounds like my honeymoon. Okay, 3 minutes.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, man. That transition right there. Go to logicalLA.com and sign up for the Free Thought Conference this weekend. So part of the issue that goes on with a lot of this stuff and with a lot of the way kind of churches handle these things is, and the big complaint is that men kind of get let off the hook, and women are seen as either too emotional, or they're seen as kind of tempting the men in the church, that they need to remain covered, that they need. And this isn't just the church. I mean, this happens in almost every major religion and minor religion, really.
Yes.
They're seen as one down citizens, basically.
Well, we blame Eve for everything that happened. And you've heard me say many times, it wasn't the apple in the tree, it was the pear on the ground that caused the problem.
So some of but there are some, and I think the challenge here is that there are very kind of clear Bible verses that people can use to justify this position.
Well, anytime we cherry pick the different verses, we can make it say anything we want. And that's one of the problems, is we often justify our bad behavior by throwing a scripture out there, taking it out of context. Also, a thing to remember, there's certain parts of the New Testament, some of Paul's letters, that are contested by scholarship research on this, that other people had done the writing in Paul's name, but it wasn't Paul's real thought. Particularly some of the stuff that talks about, women having to be submissive. Current scholarship says Paul didn't actually write that.
For those people that don't know what those verses are, let me tell you what they are. There's two in particular that really kind of stand out. There's several that can be used, but the two I think that are used the most are 1 Corinthians 14, 34 to 35,
right,
and 1 Timothy 2, 11 to 14. So 1 Corinthians is the women should keep silent in the churches, for they are not permitted to speak, but should be in submission. As the law also says, if there is anything they desire to learn, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is shameful for a woman to speak in church.
And I've had that one come up. I was doing a funeral a while back, and part of the family was a member of a group called the American Catholic Church. Now, the American Catholic Church broke off from the Roman Church because they did not like the Second Vatican Council. They did not like the fact that they were no longer doing the Mass in Latin, that they were doing it in English. And the daughter-in-law of the deceased asked me if she could speak, because they referred to this very scripture, and without my permission and her husband's permission, she felt she could not speak at her mother-in-law's funeral. And again, this is one of the contested verses where modern scholarship says Paul didn't write that. It came much later and was added in.
And then there's probably a similar answer then to this one, 1 Timothy 2, 11 through 14. Let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. That's right.
And you know that goes in direct conflict of the teachings of Jesus. And let me give you where I'm giving you some real examples of this. Mary and Martha. Jesus comes and having dinner at their place, and Mary is at the feet of Jesus as a disciple would be. Martha's running around, getting things ready, and finally Martha says to Jesus, "Tell Mary to come help me with these chores." And Jesus says that, "Martha, you worry about so many things. I will not take from her what is the highest here." And I'm paraphrasing a little bit. And he let Mary be a disciple. Not only let Mary be a disciple at that point, but made her an equal to all the men. And so he was very clear about that.
Well, there's not only that. I mean, women were present in Jesus' ministry.
Oh, yeah.
The whole time. I mean, you look at the woman who touches Jesus' garment. So he's walking through, and she touches his garment, and he feels power come out of him, and he goes and talks to her, and he heals her in the story. And the Pentecostal folks from where I come from, they would they focus on the healing part of that. But there are those who say, the real nuts and bolts of that story are in the fact that Jesus stopped, turned around, and then went and actually interacted with this woman, because that wouldn't have happened.
Well, Jesus was always in trouble for breaking the social graces of his time. The Samaritan woman at the well, it was really unheard of for a Jewish man to speak to a Samaritan woman, particularly one that might be married. And he almost lost his disciples when he did this. But it's a very important story, because he says to her, ask her for water, and she's really shocked that he's even talking to her. And then he talks about everything that happened to her life, that she wasn't just married once, she's been married 5 times, and the man that she lives with currently, as we say today, shacking with, was not her husband. And he wasn't putting her down.
So she was finally doing it the right way.
I didn't go there. You went there. And I'm not going there, because I'm looking right at my wife across the studio here. And I don't have that comfortable of a couch to sleep on. But the point being, he affirmed her, he healed her, and treated her as an equal. That wasn't done back then.
Yeah, and it's I think it's important to note that even the story I was thinking of, the woman caught in adultery, and how they took her outside, and they took her out of the city, and they were going to stone her to death. And because of the way women were viewed, property, as a rabbi, I don't think he would have had any reason to stop that other than compassion, and other than changing the way that he would interact with women.
Well, there's 2 things going on here, and I'm glad you brought up that. As you know, that's one of my favorite of the verses for a number of reasons. But take note, first of all, they're not stoning the guy who was involved with this relationship, just the woman. Something a little wrong with that. But when Jesus starts writing in the dirt with his finger, and then says that he who is without sin cast the first stone, and of course everyone leaves, he's taking the fun out of it. But the most important verse in my mind comes after that. Everyone's left. It's Jesus and the woman, and of course the disciples who are making note of this. And he says to her, "Woman, now where are your accusers?" And she says, "No, Lord, just you." And this is the part that I can't say without, you can hear the tears in my voice right now. It touches me so deep. Jesus looks at her and says, "No, neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." He healed her. He affirmed her, gave her dignity back, and says to her, "You don't have to live like this. I love you just as you are." And that's why they despise Jesus. It's because the people who had no hope, who have been second-class citizens all their life, he's saying, "No, you matter. You weren't an afterthought."
So what then is the motivation for these churches? Probably don't know the answer. Maybe you do. What then is the motivation for these churches to follow these other verses about women keeping silent and women being submissive? I mean, is this a power play? Is this a misunderstanding of Scripture? Is this a lack of education? Is it just misogynist BS? I mean, what is going on with these several traditions still? I mean, the Catholic Church still and may never allow, female clergy.
Well, yes, yes, and yes. Well, let me tell you something that happened to a former bishop of mine. He is very forward-thinking, and he ordained a woman, a priest. This is a true story. Someone literally shot at him. I mean, not figuratively, literally shot at him. And he was told to get rid of her. He sent her over to the Episcopalian Church because they have women priests. They're very wise in that. And he was told if he ever did that again, he would lose his see, meaning he would lose his diocese. He would no longer be a bishop. That's how deep this goes. And it's a shame because it goes against the teachings of Jesus. But again, we're talking that culture took over more than religion took over. And whatever the culture is of the land, that's what the religion follows. And we've been doing that forever. Look at our society here in America. How long do we not let women vote? Even now, they're trying to take things back. They say the 50s were the great days. No, they weren't. Not for most people. If you're white and had money, yeah, it was pretty good for you. But if you're a woman, it wasn't. You couldn't get a divorce. There are places in England where a man could actually abuse the woman, and if she complained, she's the one who got prosecuted. That's not the will of God. And so we men have done a terrible job in this, and it's about time we have a wake-up call. What's happening is the consciousness is changing. Thank goodness it's changing. Just like we decided that slavery was no good, how many verses say that slavery is okay?
Several.
But we've decided, no, that's not okay. Then we did civil rights. There's a lot of violence for that. Now the Me Too campaign, which I'm absolutely for, we're having a change of consciousness. And so we're having to say, yes, we used to believe this, but we found that this is not true. You know, our guest earlier should appreciate this. We thought this one time, but we've grown, and we're now putting on a higher consciousness that says no more.
So you said a little bit earlier, and I love this, and it's rare to hear a member of the clergy say this, that religion follows culture.
Yes, it's true.
So how then, because I know the question's out there, how then do we decide, I don't have one, but how do religious folks navigate? Because and to be perfectly honest, to an atheist it seems like, okay, well, what's the point of having a religion if it changes with the culture? Shouldn't you just change with the culture anyway? But for the religious person who hears, whoa, religion changes with the culture, they've been taught, many of them, no, this is objective truth. This never changes. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. How in the world do you get from that to, religion changes with culture?
Faith without doubt is superstition. You know, if you never doubt what you've been told, then you're not very intelligent. I'm sorry, that's just no other way of putting it. You should question everything. Jesus even said, search the scriptures. Find out, what does it mean now? When one person raises their consciousness, they raise the consciousness of the entire community around them. And if God is still growing, as every religion says God is, well, then I guess we're supposed to grow up in spirit too. And in doing that, we see from a different level. You know, as far as the human eye can see, I believe I'm correct that you can see on a straight horizon 7 miles if you're at sea level. If you go up 1,000 feet, let's say you're in Laguna, you could almost see Catalina Island completely, because the higher you raise your viewpoint, the farther you can see. It's the same with our faith. The more you grow, the more you can see.
How then would someone go about looking for? So it sounds, when someone has someone like you to ask, or someone like you to listen to, like, okay, this doesn't apply today. This letters of Paul, maybe he didn't write these. I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, authorship or not, like those are still in the Bible. Those are still in the book that people use as their handbook.
Yes.
So how do you decide what? It's kind of like if I have a cookbook, I have like my favorite recipes, but that's a cookbook. I don't claim ultimate authority with that cookbook. I just like shepherd's pie, and I don't really like the chicken curry, so I'm not going to make that. But it seems like with the Bible, it seems harder to do because it's supposed to all be inspired.
Well, which Bible? You have one that has the deuterocanonical books, the 8 books that are missing from the Protestant Bible. We have hundreds of Gospels that aren't even used by some parts of the church, but are still used by other parts of the church. And there's a big problem in translation. More and more scholarship is showing that there's certain things that were just translated wrong, not because they meant to, it just because people didn't understand the one language that they're translating from, trying to put it into a new language. And so we have to allow there to be changes. And there's more than just the Bible. I know some people are going to be shocked and probably throw a shoe at their radio right now. But if your only point of reference is the Bible, I mean, it's a good place to start, but if that's the only place you go, then you're never really going to meet God, to be honest with you. You have to have experience with it. Listen to the gut. Sit in silence and let God reveal God's self in your life.
Did you just imply that the King James might not be the most accurate translation of the Bible?
I just claimed that there's over 10,000 mistakes in the King James, and that's not just my opinion, that's scholarly opinion.
I thought God wrote the King James Bible.
No. I saw a bumper sticker on a van one time. I almost wrecked my car. I started laughing so hard. I'm going towards Kcaa, and I see on the back of this van it says King James translation, good enough for God, good enough for Paul, good enough for me.
Oh my.
Paul didn't speak English.
maybe Paul was his uncle or his grandpa.
Monkey's uncle, maybe.
Maybe that's what it was. Man, an hour goes by so fast. I want to thank you all so much for listening tonight and for tuning in. You can always find us on gospeloflukeandjohn.com. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, Luke John Gospel.
Wait. We want to thank Carlos.
I know. I was going to do it. I had it in my head, too.
He's the man.
I write every day. Every time we do this show, I write at the bottom of my paper, thank Carlos. And I think I've done it once. In the last time we've done this.
And while we're giving thanks Tammy for being a great producer, and thanks Gabby for making sure I got here and didn't do anything that would get me in trouble or have to blog about.
And thank you for letting us into your homes and onto your phones for an hour a week. We really, really appreciate it. And we will see you next Thursday.
Bye-bye.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.